everybody, and welcome to Terrible Lizards. I am Izzy Lawrence, the squawky, flappy lady of dreams, and next to me on this side of me, there he is the magnificent Dr. David Home from Queen Mary University. Yay!
I noticed the strong pause between "Hello, I'm Izzy Lawrence," as if you weren't entirely sure or couldn't remember.
I'm never very confident, particularly on Tuesday afternoons. They kind of, that's when we're recording this, guys, just for the little insight. It is a Tuesday afternoon, and we're recording this little bonus episode for you. Now, if you're listening to this on our Patreon, do know that you can go to the Patreon page and actually watch us in all of our beauty. Dave's been doing his makeup. He's got a bow on his hair. I'm in my hoodie, not sitting entirely comfortably, but everything's great. We've got a few questions for us now. We didn't get that many. I might have missed a few. That might have happened. So if you have sent us a lot of questions, please do send them again if we haven't answered them. But this is a lovely question from Madeline. I'm going to read out the full one because it's up here. It says, I have a dinosaur question, and it is, for those dinosaurs that we found living in the Arctic or places that have got very cold, how did they survive? I assume for dinosaurs like Nanosaurus, they had feathers or fur, but what exactly did it do in storms and blizzards? And if there were any during that time period? What did they hunt? How did they keep their eggs warm? Dave? I mean, we've got dinosaurs in the Antarctic at the moment because we've got penguins.
Yes. So that's the short answer, is they're doing what we're seeing birds and mammals do now, which is, and even some reptiles when it comes to alligators. So alligators, I don't think things have been known for a while, but certainly it's become much more prominent. But they basically freeze in winter. And so in the places where it gets cold, they will go into a pond, stick their nose above the surface, and there's an inch of ice and an alligator nose, and they just sit like that until it warms up again. Being a reptile, and even being a quote-unquote cold-blooded reptile, does not mean that it gets really, really cold, just kills you. You can stop eating, you can lower your body's temperature and effectively hibernate. So that's one option. Maybe they hibernated. Yeah, most of these things were either big, which helps keep you warm, or had feathers or something like that, which helps keep you warm. But living there and being active are not necessarily the same time. You know, squirrels hibernate, bears hibernate, lots of other things do. And then in terms of things like breeding, they don't breed when it's really cold. They'll wait until it warms up in summer. These would be seasonal environments, you know, Canada and places like northern Russia. Yeah, in winter, absolutely frozen solid, feet of snow on the ground, blizzards and all the rest of it, but there's an incredibly warm, in fact very hot summer. So there is a period, and quite a long one, where it's warm, there's lots of plants, which means there's lots of animals, which means there's a chance to breed and a chance to eat. And so building up fat reserves and just waiting out for it, or running around and digging up what you might be able to get. You see Arctic foxes hunting things like lemmings under the snow, digging out rabbits and stuff like that. This is obviously not the same animals, but these sorts of behaviors are all perfectly plausible.
I mean, I just think that, the Arctic particularly, it's mind-blowing that it gets to above 30 quite regularly in the summer. And
I think being British, we're very used to it being equitable, and it's not. It's both much colder, but in summer it's much, much hotter because it's very continental in places like even.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to sort of talk about the actual light and the difficulty with that, because we're talking about not much vegetation, presumably, during the winters.
Well, it depends, because, again, things like pine and fir trees will keep their leaves. They might be doing an awful lot less, and, of course, they have defences against being eaten, and there'll be a lot of snow, but the idea that all the trees have just completely lost their leaves and there's nothing isn't true. So, again, we don't really know. We don't know a lot about the flora. We don't know a lot about the fauna. We don't really know that much about the conditions. Brackets, certainly, I don't know that much about any of those things. But in general, I think we don't know that much. But again, just as we've seen mammoths doing very well in high latitudes during the Ice Age, there's no reason to think that things wouldn't be similar for dinosaurs. Yes, very cold at times, but also highly productive at others. And it just means these animals are incredibly seasonal, incredibly productive for 6 months, and then probably shut down for another 6.
Just with a closed sign over their body.
Yeah, pretty much.
It does also sort of like feed into this idea as well that being big might actually be really good for colder conditions compared to being slightly smaller.
Yeah. So you've got Bergman's rule, it's called, which is the idea that as you get into higher altitudes and higher latitudes, things tend to be bigger, but then they tend to have shorter appendages. So shorter arms and legs and shorter tails. If you look at things like an Arctic fox, they're actually quite stumpy, because, of course, the further out from your body you are, the harder it is to keep warm. So by being relatively short-legged, they actually help keep their heat in their legs. And, of course, they're incredibly furry. Arctic foxes are quite small, but biggest bears, polar bears, biggest deer, moose, these are, and then after that, grizzlies, which are also up there for bears. A lot of the biggest whales are Arctic.
Coyotes.
Yep. Walruses are... and elephant seals get up right into the high latitudes. So yeah, there is a general pattern of being very big.
Which, some dinosaurs were. I was going to say that, I was obviously built for high temperatures because I've got very long limbs, but then you mentioned fur, and so in which case, no, maybe I'm in the right place. Okay, this was a popular question that we've had a few people. James was the first, though. So what do you think of the Jurassic Park trailer? I thought what we could do, for those of you who are playing along at home, we can actually watch this. I've got the sound off because I've got a feeling it might get taken down off YouTube. But so far, there's dinosaur and there is what's her face?
People.
So tell me to pause it when you want me to pause it.
Well, you can pause it there, because the first thing that strikes me is, so they say, I have obviously seen this a couple of times. So there's a general conversation that he's going out there to collect dinosaur blood, which implies that he's some kind of physiologist or even medical biologist, in which case I'm not sure why he's hanging around in a dinosaur hall assembling bones. Because, of course, we don't have any genes and physiology to work on. So they seems like they've hired the wrong person before we've even started. But we'll get past that.
We need some miners to blow up this massive asteroid, because obviously it's easier to teach a miner to be.
But that at least makes sense. Is that it's miners dig holes in rock? Paleontologists don't sample blood off living animals and study it. So. Yeah, Armageddon makes more sense than this does.
So here we have this,
which is fairly damning indictment. Yeah, which I think is they're sauropods, which I've heard everywhere. So there's stuff going around here, and I have not dug into it. I've not read the official sources and views, and there were some photos that came out through Vanity Fair and stuff like this. I haven't looked at any of that, but of course I've just been impossible not to be deluged with various bits. And then I have seen the trailer a couple of times. But yeah, everywhere I've seen the sauropods referred to as titanosaurs, but I've not seen anything official saying it is a titanosaur. What? So whether or not that's true, I don't know. But it's massive, and it's got the very upright posture of titanosaurs, but then this weird super long whip tail, which is very Diplodocus-like and not very titanosaur-like at all. And then these fins, which are really weird, which I assume they're going to say is something to do with, for those who haven't seen this trailer, spoilers, there's a general plot point that these are like trial runs. These are prototype dinosaurs, and that's why they're not quite right. But it's still a bit of a weird thing. So yeah. That's what that is. So it does appear to be a titanosaur with a Diplodocus tail on it.
Yeah.
And then the fins. Very good. Well remembered. Right. Anyway, carry on.
Words.
Okay. We're 20 seconds in.
It's all right. Here's your favourite. It's a flappy flap.
Quetzalcoatlus that we see it later. We can leave it playing. Yeah. Which again is another of my favourite plot points. Is they keep having all these wild pterosaurs which somehow never get off a small island onto the mainland, despite the fact that pterosaurs could. Particularly Pteranodon from the first couple could very easily fly 100 miles to the mainland. So God knows why. Here's plot stuff. It's the old park. We've seen the old park many times. God knows which bit of which old park this is, because there seems to be an infinite number at this point.
Lots of concretes.
Yeah.
There you go.
people getting guns, which
There's
seems
lots
sensible.
of sugarcane going on as well. And here we
Yeah,
go.
I was
We're
supposed
going to raid a nest.
supposed to be bamboo. Yeah, we've got cliffs. Yeah, we need to get. Yeah, so they're mentioning Quetzalcoatlus. So Quetzalcoatlus is a much more realistic size now. The one from Lost World, whatever the last one, Dominion was it? Was insanely outsized. I mean, it's like twice the size it should have been. This thing is about right, if not a little bit small, and it's heading towards Velnhofopterus, was it? Or I think they renamed this weird skull from the Quetzalcoatlus site. But it's sort of Ashdarkidy, but not quite. The neck looks too short. The head's kind of weird. The beak's kind of weird. No, because there's a bigger shot of it flying around. It still looks it looks more like something like Aramborgiania, which is the like short-necked, robust one rather than the long-necked one, like Quetzalcoatlus or Cryodracon. Yeah, there it looks longer, but not massive. But yeah, that head shape's really odd and the crest's really odd. It's quite good. It's also got the other problem that they've had with a couple of these, which is they got it walking quadrupedally, but the arms are like held out like sideways. It's hard to describe. Like, you know, this should be what we say parasagittal. It should be walking like a giraffe. The arms should be in the same plane or nearly the same plane as the legs. And instead, it's like it's stuck its arms out at 45 degrees. So it's really kind of almost like waddling with the arms.
Like a water boatman.
Yes. Assuming anyone gets that reference. Anyway, keep playing, Liz. We'll be here all day. Again,
no, it's all right. We could be here all day. This is the whole point of the bonus episode.
I've got papers to get to writing.
Oh, okay, all right. I've got a book to write. But, you know, things are fine. There you go. Scared-looking people. That's what you want.
Scared-looking people. Yeah,
Velociraptors.
Or Dromaeosaur
and what the hell is that?
So that looks like a sauropod foot from the second I saw of it.
Yeah. That doesn't look like.
Yeah, this is the weird mutant thing that we don't know what it is.
Oh, that you see the film. More guns.
Dilophosaurus.
T-Rex.
The T-Rex. So I rather like the T-Rex. So the T-Rex, it's the old model T-Rex, so it looks like the old ones looked like, but it's got a much nicer color palette to it. It actually looks like a real animal in terms of the coloring. Some green with some stripes, which is fairly close to how Crichton described it in the original book.
Yeah. Nice.
So
tongue.
You know,
a bit lips.
I prefer
but
them.
Not total lips.
Yeah, but again, it's hard to say because it's roaring and we're only seeing mouth open. But just even in terms of color, it looks rather nicer than the older ones. So
and it's swimming.
Like,
what do we think about?
Well, it's sticking its head in the water. So I think there's a couple of bits here which they're trying to redo from the original book. So the very original book, it has a sequence with Grant and the kids in a raft, and the T-Rex tries to grab them out of the raft, and then they end up in the water, and it tries to grab them and swims after them. And then there's a pair of Dilophosaurus on the bank when they come out of the water or they go past it. So I think that's what this is showing. Yeah, I think it's.
I'm so looking forward to your reaction of this.
So we've got 3 giant Spinosaurus because they're like twice the size of that boat, or at least the size of that boat. So they appear to be massively oversized. And then they've got really nice bright colours on the fins, and then everything else about them, I think it's fair to say I'm not a fan. So, yeah, like, I mean, this is the thing, you know. I'm sure people have asked you to ask me, and I'm sure I will get asked when it comes out, because I will always get asked to do some kind of media stuff. And I'm now in this position whereby they've kind of got their get out clause, which is, well, these are the prototypes, so of course they don't look quite right and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, you look at the Spinosaurus model and I go, this is significantly worse than the Jurassic Park 3 one from 2001, when we had no good specimens of Spinosaurus. And so it's, you know, and they've always updated things. Like, they've updated the Velociraptors at times. They've got a different color in the second one to the first one. They've got those weird erectile quills and pseudo feathers in the third one that they didn't have in the previous 2. Animals that allegedly hadn't changed between the original trilogy and the Jurassic World trilogy had. So they put teeth back in the Gallimimus. They'd made the Stegosaurs smaller and turned them into tail draggers. They changed the Diplodocus model. So even and then of course they had the historical sequence, which was supposed to be like back in the Cretaceous, and then they had animals in the last one, which they described as being 100% accurate. Then, oh well, Velociraptor doesn't look right because it's only like 80%, but this one is 100%. And then you look at it and go, so. Having seen people arguing about these things and going, well, it's fine because they're not supposed to be accurate. It's like, well, they've messed around with that, whether they thought or claimed they were accurate or not in the film. So,
I mean,
no one's going to know, no one's going to care.
No, but it looks like a lot of fun. I don't know. That Spinosaur didn't appear to have any. That's a mosasaur, isn't it? Just jumping out there. Yeah. That's a bit big as well.
So that looks similar to the original one. Yeah, but that's the same as the Dominion one. So yeah, some of these things, again, it's clearly very mixed. It's like, well, these are the prototypes. Well, the T-Rex looks the same, just a different color. The Dilophosaurus looks the same. The Mosasaur looks the same. So they're not very prototypey. And again, the Spinosaurus, the sail is arguably updated. And I've heard several people say it's got the modern tail fin, but I haven't seen that on any of the shots or in that reel. So I don't know where people have got that from, but then maybe they've seen something I haven't. So again, like, oh, well, we're not, these are the prototypes, but we've updated it with stuff that people would not have known about in the 90s where the original film was. So
what you just saw flashing up there was a Daisy sent in a question. Like... Okay. Yeah, exactly. So basically, Daisy is an artist, and she wants to know how accurate her toys are. So I thought, what a great question. I
think it's fair to say it will vary.
Indeed. I mean, that doesn't look too bad. The arms are in the right position, aren't they?
Yeah, that looks all right.
Let's do it this way around. There we go.
Okay. Just go through them.
Yeah, and then we got this is another.
That looks like Disney's dinosaur one, or even that's less good. That's
a bit too cute. It could be a baby one, maybe.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have the horns. Yeah.
Adult
the next
features.
One is from. Oh, is that supposed to be
Parasaurolophus? Yeah.
That's a weird angle. It's not bad. It probably needs to be a bit chunkier. That neck looks really skinny, and needs the downward beat.
And just so you know, these are some of her drawings she did of them. So this is quite a nice little bit of art, which is lovely.
Yeah,
but so how? Are there any particularly good toy brands that people can use?
There's an awful lot of variation. The thing I'd really say actually is check out the Dinosaur Toy Blog, which is run by Adam Smith, an old friend of mine who's now at Woolerton Hall in Nottingham. Because Adam's been doing this for since I think he was doing his masters when I was doing my PhD, so 20 odd years ago. But he's got a really devout following. There's lots of people, and they'll really get into the minutiae of like every single dinosaur toy that comes out. But they just vary massively. I've got several dozen dinosaur toys in my office. I've got some that are very good that I really like. I've got some that are terrible, but I got given them, or I've had them for years, or they're the only thing I could ever find of one species or one lineage that I really, really wanted. But there's very, very good ones coming out. But as often with these things, like you get what you pay for. So here is her hat. I will reach over.
I've got a little old school T-Rexy. Nonsense.
Okay, yeah. So this is my PNSO, who's a very good Chinese company, Juchang Tyrannus. It's super accurate for the limited amount of Juchang Tyrannus that we have. His mouth opens and closes. It's really, really detailed with the scales. It's a really nice pose. It's really well painted. But it was also like 35 quid, which just for a not giant block of plastic is really quite a lot of money when there is stuff that is nearly as good that's a similar size that's half that price. So
I think this one would have been, because it was in a big tube of dinosaurs, this one would have been
I can imagine. So there's brilliant ones that are expensive. There's brilliant ones that aren't that expensive. There's some really awful ones that are very expensive. But it just varies massively. I mean, because a bunch of other people have started up recently, and then even things like PNSO. I've got a couple of their big ones, and I've got several of their little ones. So they do like this premium range. They're all about 10 inches long or even bigger for the sauropods, and then some like mini figures that are all like 2 inches, like 4 or 5 centimeters. And some of those mini ones are great. Some of them I think are really quite bad. And they're quite expensive, even the tiny ones. So I haven't bought very many. I've got 3 or 4.
Also, you're grown up now.
Yes, it's true.
But
as I say,
it
varies massively. So I can't even just say, oh, get this series or these, because some of them are good and some of them are less good. And so that's why somewhere like the Dinosaur Toy blog, where people will discuss it endlessly, is quite handy, because they'll do the work.
Do you have the address of that I can make it?
Oh, God. I think if you just... I think it's...
If you put it in the chat, then I'll prop it up on the screen so people...
Yeah, it is literally dinotoyblog.com. There we go. So, where's the... Yeah,
it's all right. I've got it. We're good. We're so prepared.
So yes, looking at it, they've got a PNSO Loki Ceratops. There we go. So yeah, that's the other thing. We're now getting all kinds of incredible minutiae when it used to be, here's T-Rex, here's Stegosaurus, here's Triceratops, here's Diplodocus, and you might get half a dozen others. Like Juchang let's be honest, it's not very well known. It's
it is.
Half
Loads
a skull.
of people know about it, Dave. All our listeners know about
I know, but that's it. And yet there are 3 or 4 different companies have made models of it. I've got 2 different Ceratoseucopses, one of which is the new Jurassic Park line. So, but weirdly, there's 2 different Ceratoseucops, but no one's made Reparo Venator. I don't know why. But yeah, you can buy, I've seen stuff Oxalia, the Spinosaurine from Brazil, which is a nose. It's barely even a snout tip. And we can argue whether or not it's a valid genus. I think it probably is. But the fact remains, if you think that Juchang Tyrannus reconstruction is stretching it, we are talking about a fifth as much as we have of Juchang Tyrannus, and there's a whole model you can buy. It's a big Spinosaurine. It probably looks vaguely like Spinosaurus and Ichthyovenator. No surprise. The model is probably not inaccurate, but the point is they're making models of very obscure things that are not very well known at all. And there are dozens of toys. So, there's a company, Everything Dinosaur. And I think their prices are competitive. I've bought some stuff off them a couple of times. But if you want a list of everything you could get, they have, certainly, I think they're British-based, more than I could get anywhere else if I wanted a toy dinosaur and I was in the UK. So you could have a look at them. Okay,
I want your thoughts on this, because I remember you did a paper a while ago. Not a while ago.
I've done many, yeah.
You've done quite a few. But last year we chatted about this particular one where you were saying that T-Rex could have been much bigger than we think.
No, I said everything could be much bigger than we think. We use T-Rex as a model because this is an important point that people are still getting wrong.
Well,
but anyway, carry on. Yes,
Klaus
Goliath,
wrote in.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, what are your thoughts on the Goliath T-Rex femur? Isn't that, in terms of size, length, exactly what you predicted in your paper on the upper end of the spectrum? And Klaus thinks that you're going to be delighted with this because, obviously, is this proving you correct?
Well, potentially. So for those who haven't seen it, there's basically photos doing the round online describing this new T-Rex femur, which they've nicknamed Goliath. It's a privately held and excavated thing. And it's not that I distrust the measurements, because I don't think anyone is measuring this thing and then just happily adding 20 centimeters to it to make it much bigger than it actually is or anything like that. But the fact remained, all I have seen of this is one photo with some comments saying it is roughly these measurements or it is these measurements. And that's it. Like, that's the limit of the information. It is a Tyrannosaur femur. It's T-Rex femur or whatever. But it's like, we don't know.
Your skepticism's there, isn't it?
Well,
it's a bit like when you go, it's like banana for scale. You need more eyes on it.
Right, but that's the thing. Like, even if it's the measurements they say it is, these are raw measurements. Like, you can see from the photo, it has been crushed, so it is squidged in certain dimensions. That can very easily exaggerate length. That can very easily exaggerate apparent width, but in one direction and not the other, so it will change the proportions of it. And this is these people saying this is what we have. And then other people I've already seen on Reddit, for example, have plugged it into a bunch of published algorithms and gone, oh, well, if these numbers are right, it's weighs in these things and it's this big. And it's like, maybe, but this is the kind of classic, it's skepticism, but it's
You
also
kind of
due diligence. I don't know. I've seen a photo with measurements that are probably credible, depending on quite what's happened to it, depending on quite how you measure it, depending on quite how squidged it is, depending on whether or not it's been not cheated in any way, but like if it's squidged that way, it looks longer than it actually is, and therefore it's not quite that big. And if you're saying, well, it's something like 11 centimeters longer than Sue's, well, maybe it's actually only 6, or maybe it's actually only 2. And as I've pointed out with like Ducheng tyrannus, this random giant vert we found of it, well, maybe that T-Rex has just got really long legs. Like I've got friends with, as a good old friend of mine from uni, who's I'm a bit over 6 foot. He's a bit under 6 foot. He's 2-3 inches, 7-8 centimeters shorter than me, and his arms are about 5 centimeters longer than mine, a couple of inches. So he's really long armed, and so maybe this is long legged. Maybe it's fat legged. We don't know. Maybe Sue is unusually short-legged, but we don't know because we don't have an amazing sample size. And so I'm not saying it's not genuine. I'm not saying it's not as big as it's being claimed. I'm not saying it isn't a 12 or 15-ton T-Rex, which some people have been calculating. But it's a photo. That's what it is right now. It is not a scientific paper by a group of independent experts who have sat down. Oh, my phone's going off. And have so unprofessional.
Point is, Dave. The thing is, all of this is because, like, if they wrote a paper about it, got people to verify it, maybe there are other evidence of larger things as well in there, then you'd be able to go, yeah, that's right. Well, big T-Rex around.
But that's the thing. Like, it's, you might think I'm immediately just delighted because it proves me right. For a start, the numbers I've seen bandied about are bigger than Sue. Obviously, if its measurements are bigger than Sue's, that shouldn't be a big surprise. They're not as high as some of the estimates that I had in my paper with Jordan Mallon. But again, at some level, what we did in that paper went, there's probably bigger ones out there, is trivial to the point of pointlessness. Of course, there's bigger ones out there. We're not going to have found the biggest one from a couple of dozen skeletons. The real question is, well, just how big might they get, and just where does that take us in terms of the data? But this is exactly the kind of thing that feeds into that. If we find another 5 like this, well, then either we're finding artificially big ones, or maybe they're a lot bigger than we thought and actually been finding relatively small ones. This is why you need a big sample size, and this is why you need to treat these claims. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anything that's been done or inaccurate with any of that, but we really don't know, and there's no way of knowing until it's all been checked, it's all been verified. People have considered these different possibilities for potential squidging and measurements, and is it long-legged or is Sue short-legged or all the rest of it? And you want to do all of that. And so what I'm seeing, with no disrespect to the person who pushed this comment, but what I'm seeing online is loads and loads and loads and loads of excitement about something we actually really don't know very much about at all. It's the same with the Spinosaurus arm that was doing the rounds a couple of years ago. Someone claimed to have a Spinosaurus arm that they bought from Morocco, and it was available, and everyone was going nuts. It's like, well, it's on a shelf in some guy's room who claims that it's a complete and whole one from one specimen because that's what the dealer told him. And you're like, let's not get too excited about until
you've been
we know.
burnt before.
But this is why we talk about these things, and I did my mea culpa on Lucci Bang. Like, even experts have been caught out with something that looks genuine and turned out not to be. These things do happen. So yeah, let's wait until that's in a museum and has been published properly, and we've tested all the hypotheses, and then see how big it might actually be. And I would not be at all surprised if it was every big as is claimed and it's a massive Rex. I would not be surprised if it got downgraded quite significantly, because it is kind of squished, and actually when you try and factor that in and work back, suddenly it's not that much bigger, or it's within an error margin of a couple of percent.
But we don't like anybody who's going to do that bit of research. We want them to say, actually, it was even bigger, and it's actually been squished the other direction. So, that'd be cool.
Right, but let's.
We don't know. No, as usual, listeners, readers, watchers, viewers. That's the word. We don't know. This is paleontology. We don't know. There are things we do know, not many things, but we don't know a lot. So, including whether we can trust that particular femur. So we've done our time, Dave. You can go off and answer your telephone. Thank you very much for.
I think that was my insurance company calling me back after they hassled me yesterday. So I can guess it's not a very exciting phone call that I missed.
Well, I mean, it might have been like ITN. I don't know why that would be the most exciting thing to think of. Asking you about some sort of they've just found an amazing.
They want to ask me about the Jurassic Park trailer, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably that. But now
I'm genuinely surprised I haven't had any formal media requests just from the trailer. I'm quite pleased in a way.
Well, you had it from me.
Only a matter of time. Yeah, quite.
Exactly. So apart from a stumpy Quetzalcoatlus and some very fast swimming Spinosaurs, who are helping a mosasaur that was also in there.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what species do. They help each other to hunt. That's a thing. Although crows do it, don't they? They tell wolves where things are.
Oh, there's a whole bunch of cooperative hunting for anyone who's read my Uncovering Dinosaur Behaviour book. I mentioned that there's records of, I think it's a striped hyena hunting with Ethiopian wolves for an extended period. They stayed together as part of a group. This is not weird speculative stuff in that regard. Oddly enough, quite how be depicted, I might have some issues with. But yeah,
I also love the fact that the mosasaur seems to be, the mosasaur seems.
Well,
to be
I mean, the mosasaur's big enough. It should just eat them. I mean, that's the solution. That problem is just eat them. They're a fraction of its size. It's a giant macro predator. You don't need these little things to help you out, like wolves and hyena. And there's one seen. Is it fox? Was it a coyote and a badger that's done the round several times online in the States? Or a fox and a badger? Have you not seen it? It's an American badger.
I mean, a fox and a badger. We're getting close to Wind in the Willows here.
Wind in the Willows, yeah. So... No, I think it's a fox rather than a coyote. My memory is faulty. Okay. But there's this lovely video from someone who set up a trail cam or equivalent for one of those culverts that goes under a road. And this fox comes trotting down, stops, turns around, waits, and then this badger doing a very badgery kind of amble comes down, and then the fox and the badger trot off together through the tunnel. So he's clearly waited for him, and then they're clearly traveling together. So yeah, these animal mutual foraging or mutual hunting things absolutely turn up in a couple of different groups.
So you see, the animals
but they're comparably sized animals.
It's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
I'm hearing animals of farming wood. Accurate story.
It's like, look at these sea lions hunting with this great white shark, and it's like, no, the great white shark should be eating the sea lions and a perfect great white shark prey-sized prey that are swimming around it. That's the solution to your problem. Yes, quite.
Anyway, we that is the end of this episode. Thank you very much for supporting us on Patreon. You're very, very brilliant, and we love you very much. Do write your questions underneath this video, and we will answer them when we have more time, or next month, in fact. And anything else, Dave, that you need to announce? Do you have no? Good.
Probably not. We're still doing the Lyme Regis Festival in June. Yes. I don't think tickets are available yet, but that's definitely
when they are. I'll put them on our Patreon.
I know a bunch of other people who are regularly mentioned on this podcast are going, so it will be very paleontology.
It might, and hopefully my publishers will actually get my book on sale in time, which have dinosaurs.
Yeah,
possibly not.
I've ordered a bunch of copies of Dinosaur Behaviour, but apparently they're out of stock, so they can't even ship them to me, which is nice because they've sold out. But on the other hand, someone was complaining about this in December, and the fact that in February we're still in the same problem suggests they have not printed enough. So I hope people are getting their copies.
Yes. Well, no, I mean anybody who's ordered
Please
one
write me
will
a
do,
review.
but
Yes.
exactly. Go and write
Yes.
reviews. Also, the Cursed Tomb is out. If you're interested in a very
Always back to you.
What is historically accurate? It's not dinosaurs, but it is a long time ago, but not millions of years, only thousands of years, because it's set in 1249 BCE.
Yeah.
But if you know any short people in your life, you want to learn about real ancient Egyptians doing what they did, which has been read by Egyptologists who've given it their sort of big tick it's probably roughly, that'll do, then it's pretty accurate. And it's by me, Izzy Lawrence, ISZI. Anyway, we will see you next month, and until then, shall we roar, Dave? Shall we? Yeah.
Really
3, 2, 1. Roar.